Hey, you need a little help deciding who to sit and who to start this week? Then I got you, and if this video doesn't help you out, leave me a comment and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So let's hop right into it. Week 11 starts and sits. All right, first of all, let's go Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson is a definite start this week because they're playing the Ravens, who has become an absolute pass funnel of a defense, and the Steelers typically compete very, very well against the Ravens, so I think it's going to be in your best interest to start Russ this week. All right, moving on to a sit. So Geno Smith does not have a good record against the 49ers. He only has 3 games with fewer than 15 fantasy points this year, one of which being against the 49ers. He's averaged 232 passing yards, 2 touchdowns to 4 interceptions against the Niners, so I think it's probably in your best interest to leave Geno on the bench this week. All right, next, moving on to Josh Jacobs. So I think that he is a must start this week because the Bears have been an absolute run funnel. It's not super easy to throw on them, so I think that he is bound to have a big game, and plus he's been struggling to get touchdowns this year. I think he's bound to start to get into the end zone a little bit more moving forward. All right, so let's move on to a sit at running back position. Let's talk about Rico Dowdle. So I know your first impression can kind of be like, oh, well, they got a backup quarterback in there. Everything's going to go to Rico because they can't throw the ball. While that may have some truth to it, this is just going to be a bad offense as a whole, and you don't want to invest in players on bad offenses. It's likely going to be a very, very rough week for Rico Dowdle, so I would probably avoid playing him this week. And on top of all of that, Houston's defense is yielding the 5th fewest fantasy points to running back, so I would definitely try and look for a different option from Rico Dowdle this week. It's going down. I'm feeling like a millionaire. All right, moving on to a start at the wide receiver position. Let's talk about Jauan Jennings. I think people need to start giving this dude his flowers. He is the wide receiver 2 in a very high-powered offense. He is capable of being great on a week-to-week basis in fantasy. So with his first game without Brandon Ayuk last week, he led the Niners in routes run, targets, catches, air yards, and receiving yards. This is definitely somebody you want to be starting, somebody that you want to invest in, and the Seahawks defense is not great. The secondary can be very lackluster at times, so I'd start Jauan Jennings. All right, so moving on to a sit at wide receiver, let's talk about Josh Downs. It's been a bit of a rough season for him when Anthony Richardson is playing. I think he's had one good game with AR, although it's been very inconsistent, so I would definitely recommend sitting him down for the week and just seeing what him and AR are able to do this week, and then you can go from there. Just realize I've totally been neglecting tight ends, so let's talk about Tucker Kraft. So I did just say that this Bears defense can be a bit of a run funnel, which is true, but they can also be susceptible to letting up a lot of checkdowns just because they are so deep over the middle and deep downfield. So the game plan against Chicago is basically going to be checkdowns and run the ball. So I think that Tucker Kraft is in a great position to have a great game because Jordan Love is back. He's had some time to recover, and there's not going to be a whole lot open deep downfield, I don't think, this game. So definitely want to start Tucker Kraft this week. Moving on to a sit at tight end, Jake Ferguson. I mean, this one goes without saying. Yeah, usually a tight end is a rookie or bad quarterback's best friend, but I don't know. I just think that this Dallas offense is on a whole different level of dysfunctional, and that nobody is going to be playable in this offense going forward. All right, moving on to Justin Herbert. So as we've all seen, Justin Herbert's passing volume is on an upward trend, so that's very encouraging to see, and they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who has a trash secondary, to be frank, so I think that he's a very safe start this week. Another sit at quarterback, as much as it pains me to say it, is Sam Darnold. We're going against the Titans defense this week, who has a pretty solid secondary. They're pretty much just underrated a little bit all around, and Sam Darnold has not been performing very well. So while I do think Sam is capable of winning us this game, I'm not sure how fantasy relevant of a game he's going to have. So you might want to avoid Sam this week. Moving on to another start at running back, let's talk about Nick Chubb. So obviously he's been very underwhelming since he came back. He's coming off a very devastating injury, so it's not super surprising, but I do still think he's ramping his way up. I think he could easily be very relevant in the second part of the season here. But you got to start him against the Saints, man. The Saints' run defense is absolutely horrible, so if Nick Chubb is going to have a good game, it's got to start against the Saints. All right, moving on to Tony Pollard. So Tony Pollard is playing one of the best run defenses in the league, in the Vikings, and Tajay Spears is starting to look more healthy and is more available once again. So I think that if you can avoid starting Tony Pollard, I would probably do so. It looks like his volume is going to go down, and it's not a favorable matchup for him. All right, and then let's talk about another start at wide receiver, Cedric Tillman. So this Saints defense, as I was just saying, they're bad all around. Not only against the run, their secondary is ass, and Marshawn Lattimore is now gone. So as long as Jameis doesn't decide to throw 5 picks this week, Cedric Tillman should have a hell of a week. I would definitely be starting him this week. And it's kind of low-hanging fruit, but CeeDee Lamb, man. I know that hurts. I know you took him with a first-round pick, but he's not going to be relevant with Cooper Rush or Trey Lance out there, unfortunately. I said this in one of my previous videos. This is going to be a Tyreek Hill and Tyler Huntley situation. This isn't going to be a Justin Jefferson and Nick Mullins situation. Sit CeeDee Lamb down until he can prove that he can do something with these horrible quarterbacks. All right, and then another start at the tight end position is going to be Hunter Henry this week. So I know he didn't have a great week last week, but as I said earlier in the video, a tight end is a rookie quarterback's best friend, and that has shown this year. Drake May loves targeting Hunter Henry, and the Rams have allowed the 9th most fantasy points per game to the tight end position. So if you got Hunter Henry, you should probably be starting him this week. All right, and last sit for tight ends, let's talk about Mike Gesicki. So he had a pretty nice run there, although I don't really think he's very startable with T. Higgins not out there. So T. Higgins was just upgraded to healthy earlier today, so I think that you want to look elsewhere if you are looking for a streaming tight end this week. All right, y'all, there is 8 starts, 8 sits for you. Hopefully that helped you out a little bit. Like I said, leave a comment if you want some advice, got a question about fantasy, anything. I am always happy to help. I will get back to you as soon as possible. With that being said, appreciate y'all. Check out my other socials at Scribe2Balla, like, comment, sub, all that good stuff, and y'all have a beautiful night.